Hey everybody, this is Andre here with the Kevin Breeze channel, and in this video, we're going to be doing a comparison between the OnePlus Nord N10 5G and the OnePlus Nord N100. These phones are both fairly new, being released in November of 2020. Definitely check the link in the description as pricing and availability is always changing. That being said, let's get started. So the OnePlus Nord N10 5G has a 6.49-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1080p, a PPI of 406, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 83.5%. The OnePlus Nord N100 has a 6.52-inch 90Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 720p, a PPI of 269, an aspect ratio of 20:9, and a screen-to-body ratio of 82.9%. So these displays physically look very similar. Screen-to-body ratio and size is a tiny bit different, but I really can't tell the difference that much. If you hold them together, you can kind of see, but not really. The bezels on the Nord N10 5G are a little bit thinner on paper, but really in reality, they do look practically the same. You can kind of tell if you look really closely and you're really looking for that difference, but you really are not going to tell at first glance. Now the display for the Nord N100 is a little bit bigger, but again, it's very hard to tell. Overall, the biggest difference is going to be in the quality of the display, in which the Nord N10 5G definitely has a better quality with a higher resolution, higher PPI, and overall just a better look. But that being said, both of them are really good, and it's pretty unusual to find a mid-range phone like these two with a 90Hz display. A 90Hz display as opposed to a 60Hz display is going to make the display a little bit higher quality, so that's definitely nice. Now, both of these phones have a hole punch for the front-facing camera. The difference between these two is the Nord N10 5G is a 16 megapixel front-facing camera, whereas the Nord N100 only has an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. That being said, both of them look great. This hole punch design really adds a nice modern touch to these phones, and since the bezels are very sleek, they come standard with the gesture navigation, and they have really nice displays. It really enhances that modern, more sophisticated style, and I really like it. Now, the Nord N10 5G has 128 gigabytes of internal storage with microSD card expansion, whereas the Nord N100 has 64 gigabytes of internal storage, also with microSD card expansion. So both of them are really good. I would say the Nord N10 5G definitely has an edge, having double the storage of that of the Nord N100. To put this into perspective, entry-level iPhones start off at 64 gigabytes of internal storage, and those don't have microSD card expansion. So really, even the N100 being the lower of the two does still have an advantage over the entry-level iPhone. So that's something to keep in mind. The iPhone is actually more expensive than both of these phones combined, especially brand new. So to think that they have an advantage over that phone is something worth noting. Now, there's no wireless charging on these phones, unfortunately, but both of them do have not only a fingerprint scanner, but also face unlock. It's nice to have both options. Maybe in one situation, one might be more convenient than the other and vice versa. So it's really nice to have both. They are located in the exact same spot right here on the center in the back, not too close to the camera, not too far out of the range you normally would hold the phone in. So overall, a really comfortable, nice spot. Let's test out each of them and see how they perform. So we're going to start with the N10 5G. One more time. There we go. That was really fast and responsive, as you saw there. Now we're going to test out the fingerprint scanner for the Nord N100. There we go. One more time. There we go. So on that second try, I did intentionally place my finger in a really odd spot that I don't think a whole lot of fingerprint scanners pick up on the first try. And as you saw, it did open just fine. So that just goes to show how good these fingerprint scanners really are. Both of them are really fast and responsive, no problems whatsoever, really convenient to use, so I have no complaints. Now taking a look at the camera setup of these two phones, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G has a 64 megapixel rear camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. The OnePlus Nord N100 has a 13 megapixel rear camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. It's missing the ultra wide camera, so that's a little bit of a disappointment. I don't know why they couldn't have just included both features on both phones, but at least the N10 5G does have an ultra wide camera, and you can tell just by the megapixels alone, there's a huge difference between these two cameras. The Nord N10 5G not only has that extra camera with that ultra wide, but it also has a lot higher quality, at least as far as we can tell so far, and most likely a lot more features. You can really tell that with the N10 5G, they really wanted it to be a more camera-focused phone that has a lot more features in that department. Whereas with the N100, although they did make the camera still pretty good and still has a lot of decent features, it's not going to be quite as heavy in the camera department. That being said, let's take a look at a few examples and see how these cameras actually perform. So this is a picture taken with the regular camera of the Nord N10 5G. This camera is definitely very high quality. The image is super sharp. The details are really vivid, as well as the colors. The colors are super balanced and it handles exposure really well. I would definitely not mind using this camera for professional purposes, like general photography, if I was making pictures for social media or a website or whatever the case may be. It's definitely very powerful and would be really effective for that type of purpose. Now this is a picture taken with the regular camera of the Nord N100. As you can see, this camera is really good as well. The image is similarly crisp. The colors are really well balanced. I would say the exposure isn't quite as great as that of the N10 5G, which really does make sense because the N10 5G is a little bit higher quality than the N100 in general. But overall, for comparison purposes, I would say the Nord N10 5G does have a better camera, but both images are really good. Now, these are images taken with the macro cameras. I would say they're almost the same. It's just that the yellow balance for the macro camera of the Nord N100 is a little bit higher, whereas the colors in the N10 5G look a little natural, a little bit more normal. As far as the detail goes, I would say that they're about the same. Detail is great on both. The quality is really impressive, so I really like the images on both cameras. Now, these are images taken on the front-facing cameras. This was taken with the front-facing camera of the N100. The colors and everything look really great. The image is very sharp. Honestly, I was really surprised. The quality of this is just really great. For an 8 megapixel camera on a phone of this level, I really wasn't expecting this, but it's really impressive and I really like the picture. This picture was taken with the N10 5G. As you can see here, it's a little bit better. The quality is a little bit more crisp. The colors are a little bit more vivid and balanced. Everything looks a little bit more natural on here. So I do like this camera better. But overall, I think whether it's the rear camera, the front camera, you name it, all of the cameras on either of these phones are definitely usable for more than just casual purposes. If you're taking pictures for social media or a website, then you're definitely going to get a lot of value out of these because these phones are really reasonably priced. In the case of the N100, it's pretty entry level, and the N10 5G is more of a mid-range phone, and both of them are very good as far as the cameras go. I think that they are among the best in their respective price ranges, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, I'm not going to be testing the ultra-wide camera of the N10 5G for this video just because since the N100 doesn't have an ultra-wide camera, there's really nothing to compare it to. But if you are curious about how the ultra-wide camera performs, then definitely check out the review of the OnePlus Nord N10 5G on the channel. Now, even video-wise, these cameras are really great. With the Nord N10 5G, you can shoot 4K videos on the rear camera and 1080p in the front. And with the Nord N100, you can shoot 1080p in both the rear and front. So even if you're shooting videos on these phones, you can still shoot videos in really good quality on either of them. So I would say if taking really high quality photos is important to you, you're not going to go wrong with either devices. If you have the budget to, and it's really important to get the best quality possible, I would say go for the Nord N10 5G because the camera in every way is going to be a little bit better. But no matter what, either of these phones is going to be great as far as photography and that sort of thing goes. Now internally, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G is getting 6 GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 690 5G processor. We ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on the phone, and it came back with a single core score of 609 and a multi-core score of 1832. Definitely impressive numbers. The OnePlus Nord N100 is getting 4 GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 processor. We ran a Geekbench 5 benchmark test on that as well, came back with a single core score of 251 and a multi-core score of 1172. So both of them have great numbers. The processors are very strong. Obviously, the Nord N10 5G is going to be a lot faster than the Nord N100. So if you're doing more demanding activities like photo and video editing and gaming and that sort of thing, definitely you're going to be able to do those better with the Nord N10 5G. To give you an idea of what these speeds look like, we're going to test them side by side and see how they perform. Starting with Google Chrome. All right, as you can see there, it was very close. They're both really fast, but clearly the Nord N10 5G did have the advantage there. Let's try a web page. Once again, the Nord N10 5G is definitely the faster phone, but at the same time, they are very close, so do keep that in mind. Now, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G has a 4300 mAh battery that supports 30 watt fast charging, and the OnePlus Nord N100 has a 5000 mAh battery that supports 18 watt fast charging. So overall, both of them do have pretty big batteries that are going to last a while, but comparing apples to apples here, the OnePlus Nord N100 does have the bigger battery. The only drawback is it only supports 18 watt fast charging, whereas the OnePlus Nord N10 5G supports 30 watt fast charging. Now, this isn't really going to make a big difference unless you have a really powerful fast charger, but for all intents and purposes, the N100 is going to have a bigger battery, which means it's going to last not only longer per charge, but also it's going to have a little bit more longevity. Now, in conclusion, which of these devices is better? No matter what you compare it to besides the battery, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G is definitely the better device. Not only does it have a faster processor, but it also has more storage, a slightly better quality display, and it does have a much better camera as well. So no matter what your activities are, whether it's just basic activities, browsing the web, content consumption, or more demanding things like video editing and gaming, or taking pictures or shooting videos, no matter what the situation is, the OnePlus Nord N10 5G is going to come out on top. Now, the one advantage the OnePlus Nord N100 does have is the battery. The battery is going to last a tiny bit longer and have a little bit more longevity, but I really wouldn't say that's a big deciding factor for most people because the difference isn't really huge. Now, that being said, the OnePlus Nord N100 is still a great phone, and if that is where your budget is at, I would definitely say it's a really great option. There's really nothing that either of these phones does bad. They're really great at pretty much everything, and if you're looking for a really good entry-level priced phone, they can do pretty much anything you would need it to do, then the OnePlus Nord N100 is a great option as well. But definitely, if you're looking for the most premium quality, fastest processor, great camera, the whole package, then definitely the OnePlus Nord N10 5G is the way to go. It is going to be the better device between the two. That being said, if you want any information on the pricing and availability of these devices, definitely check the link in the description below because pricing and availability is always changing. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.